managing resources, taking control or over-controlling, enhancing your depth, or getting caught up in trivia. The continuation of heightened emotionality. These are all pressures that this cycle of the human design weather for March 29th until April 4th, 2025 will bring. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic energetic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. On this podcast, Human Design Weather or Not, we explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. You can't avoid the conditioning pressures. You'll likely notice their pressures playing out around you. But rather than you reacting and being pulled off track, this awareness will empower you to navigate the cycle, staying true to your authentic nature and take advantage of opportunities when correct for you. Okay, well, just a reminder that if you're interested in the design of plants from a human design perspective, how they support you, how your design interacts with plants, there's a reason why it can feel good to be out in nature, why you might be attracted to a certain tree or a certain shrub or flower, for example. And how you can actually plant seeds to have specific personality traits. I'm offering a new program with 2 masterclasses, about 90 minutes each on March 31st and April 1st. Registration ends on March 30th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can check it out, check out the details at programs. All right, let's delve into the weather for this cycle. It starts March 29th at 5:04 p.m. and goes until April 4th at 9:52 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, that's 11:04 p.m. on March 29th, going until April 4th at 3:52 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so that when you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. The Sun now has moved into Gate 21, the trait of the hunter, huntress, the trait of control in the ego center, which we also call the heart center. It's the motor that provides willpower. Its keynote says the justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. It's part of the tribal circuitry, so there's always an underlying theme there of mutual support. You do this for me, I do that for you. If you have this trait in your chart, Gate 21, no one should ever tell you how to make your money, how to spend your money, what to wear, what to eat, or where to live. No micromanaging. It's a very powerful ego gate. It is meant to be controlling. That is correct for it. And that controlling force is really necessary to be able to serve and protect the tribe. It's a trait that serves the community more on the business entrepreneurial side. So just for context, the tribe has the drive within it for survival of the species, making more of us, reproduction, and then caring for our young. So there's a lot embedded in it about relationships, family, community, but the community does need its resources. So there's also this entrepreneurial business side of the tribal circuitry. This is the trait that really establishes for the community and the business what's viable, what really works, and to make sure that the community does have the resources that it needs. Food, shelter, the work that it needs, and so on. It's in that ego center, which is that willpower center, and willpower cannot be sustained indefinitely. It needs its rest. So this trait, it also Make sure that there's a reward for work through leisure time. We need time to rest. Really important for any of the traits that are in the heart center, in the ego center. This trait has strong management energy to help look after the needs that we humans living together on the material plane have. And it does extend beyond the material to look after needs on the spiritual level as well. You can think of it's electromagnetic, that gate 45 in the throat center that it's pointing at. That's the trait of the gatherer as the CEO of a business that's externally facing, gathering the support that's needed for the business. This trait, gate 21, is more like the president that's more internally facing to ensure that every part of the business is operating as it should for success. How this trait operates does depend on your human design type. So if you're a projector, people have to recognize you for you to be in control. Otherwise, you're not meeting the right people. If you're a generator, that includes manifesting generators, you can only take control if someone asks you and you respond to it. And a manifester should be asking for permission before taking control. Biologically, this trait is associated with the physical heart. So if you have an undefined heart center and you try to take control without waiting, you can end up with heart problems. Potential opportunities with this trait are being better able to manage your resources and get a sense of anything that needs to be shifted to support your material success, and potentially even being able to take action on this. This is a motor. It's a place where action can happen. The cautions here, being over controlling. If you don't have this trait in your design and you're taking it in through the transit field, you're going to learn about control, but also because the energy gets amplified, you may find yourself being very, very resistant to being controlled or micromanaged. Don't you tell me what to do. You might find yourself very reactive, let's say, to forces that might be trying to control you. Whew, okay. The Earth has moved into gate 48, the trait of depth, the well, in the splenic center, our most primal awareness center. Last cycle, we had the Earth in gate 18, the trait of correction that can know what's not working in the pattern. Now we move up to gate 48 that has the depth to come up with the solutions to what's not working. So gate 18 knows this needs to be corrected, but doesn't have the solutions. Here's where we find it now in this trait 48. This is collective logic. So it's sharing about all those patterns that can carry us safely and reliably into the future. What do we need to experiment with? The necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good is its keynote. The common good is a reminder that this is meant to be for the betterment of humanity, as all of the collective circuitry is. This trait really brings an amazing depth from what you've collected through life. There's a capacity to understand patterns deeply and to share them so that they can be experimented with and refined so that we can really trust them. Logic always has a drive for perfection. So you may notice increased perfectionist tendencies through this cycle. If you have this trait, as you follow your strategy, your authority, you'll collect exactly what you're supposed to nurture your depth. Of course, it does take time for depth to be gained, for that well to be filled. The potential opportunities that this trait brings is you might really get a handle on potential solutions and be able to practice and play with it, experiment with it, so that when the opportunity arises in the future, it can really be expressed out for others to take in and then experiment with. Logic, again, always brings this quality of perfectionism. If you have a talent that you're developing, this frequency could really help you in giving you the concentration to keep up with the practice that's necessary. Be open to any solutions that want to come through you in this cycle. The cautions with this trait is you could really get caught up in trying to perfect something beyond what's of value and be wasting energy as a result. There could be a lot of frustration as well, as you might have potential solutions, but without the connection to the throat, if you don't have trait 16, it's electromagnetic in the throat center, it's going to be hard to express out those solutions clearly in a way that others can understand them. So you've got to be patient with that. As well, in taking in all the patterns, the well that this trait can end up taking in a whole lot of junk as well, a whole lot of trivia. Although it's kind of ironic these days that people can make a lot of money from knowing a lot of trivia. There's a fear of inadequacy that comes with this trait, thinking that you don't have the depth, you don't have the skills, the talent. So you could end up signing up for courses, that type of thing, to try to access what you think that you're missing. But if you're not following your strategy and authority, you could end up spending a lot of money on something that you'll actually never use. When we look at these two traits together, the depth of the 48 may help to find practical solutions for gaining the needed resources that the 21 is looking for. Or there could be a sense of being inadequate in taking control of your material needs. Or you could be trying to take control of things that are actually trivial and not worth your energy. So again, different ways that this combination could play out. Let's move into looking at the channels being created this cycle. The transit field, when it creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving the activation of the traits and qualities. So it carries a large impact with it that way. We have our one long-term channel that came in February. We're getting there. We're almost through it. It's here until April 7th. So yeah, it's been with us for a while now. Jupiter is sitting in that gate 35 position in the throat center, the trait of progress and change, connecting with its electromagnetic, the trait of crisis, gate 36 in the emotional center, the solar plexus center, that's being activated by the north node of the moon and by Saturn's position. This creates the channel of transitoriness, the design of a jack of all trades. The rule of thumb is to never repeat an experience, but to move from one experience to another. So there's the transitoriness. We have that emotional center connecting to the throat center. The emotional center is a motor and an awareness center, our emotional awareness. So it has two functions. This can be quite pushy energy. It can bring emotional volatility, the feeling energy moving right up and out of the throat. It brings a pressure to enter into a new experience, a pressure to change something in your life. The gate of crisis, that trait 36, is about being a novice at something. You don't have the experience yet. So it can also bring a sense of inadequacy. So we're seeing these mirrors. We've got trait 48 in the Earth's position on the logic side, and this trait of crisis, gate 36, on the abstract side, both carrying this sense of inadequacy. So that's a theme that could really come up in this cycle in a more amplified way. The potential opportunity, if it's correct for you, according to your strategy and authority, is to enter into a new experience, or move to the next phase of an experience you're already in, or bring something to completion. It's like getting up to that trait 35 in the throat center, where you can articulate the change and progress and how you feel. This is a channel where you can share your feelings about your experience. It's a very creative channel. It's a place where you can find all the different ways of experiencing something. How many ways can you use a fork or a brick or that kind of thing? It's hot sexually speaking. Let's try something new, and yet totally impersonal. It's all about the experience. The cautions here. There can be no expectations about what the experience will bring. That trait 35 in the throat center is the voice of, most often I feel like a change, but it's also the voice of, I'm bored. Because you've come to completion of one experience, and yet there's nothing new yet on the horizon. If you enter into an experience out of the pressure and not your strategy and authority, it can bring those not self themes that go with your type: frustration, anger, disappointment at an unmet expectation, bitterness. There can be a sense of feeling stuck. All right. We've got 3 channels being created by the transit of the moon, which means they're just tasters. They're just little samplers. The moon only stays in a gate, activating a trait for about 10 to 11 hours, give or take. Last cycle, coming in on March 29th at 2:42 p.m. and going until 11:37 p.m. in this cycle, Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's going to be going out on March 30th at 5:37 a.m. We had the moon moving into gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, that heart center, connecting with gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love, that's being activated by Neptune. Has been for a bit now, but also now being activated by Mercury and Venus coming in this cycle. This is an individual channel that can bring a pulse of knowing, of what leap into the unknown to take, to stretch yourself. It initiates you into a new sense of self, coming more deeply into yourself and being centered in that. It can be very empowering and support you in accepting yourself as you are. That's the opportunity that comes with this. The caution, though, is that this can be deeply, deeply competitive, and that's often how we see it play out in the not-self world around us. April 1st at 11:52 p.m. until April 2nd at 9:12 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, April 2nd at 5:42 a.m. until 3:12 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 16, the trait of skills and enthusiasm in the throat center, connecting with that Earth's position. That gate 48, the trait of depth. And that creates the channel of the wavelength, a design of talent, part of the collective logic circuitry, finding those patterns to carry us safely and reliably into the future. With gate 48 being in the splenic center, it tells us that developing your depth and your talents is something that can provide a sense of well-being. The potential opportunities with this channel, if you have the energy and it's correct for you according to your strategy and authority, it's a really great time to be working on developing your talents, your skills. Just remember that it is a long process, so watch for self-criticism. Logic is always very critical. There can be the ability here to express and share your depth, your talents, your skills. You may also really enjoy recognizing and appreciating the talents of others being expressed. Seeing a good movie, really good acting, or wonderful musical, or, whatever avenue of talent it is. The cautions here: watch for investing in something that you think will develop your talents out of the pressure rather than using your strategy and authority. There can be bitterness here if your talents aren't being recognized. And if you don't have access to a motor in your design, that's a defined sacral, emotional, root, or ego center, there could be a lot of frustration as, you have this pressure to practice and develop your talent, but just no energy to actually do it. With logic, there's that perfectionism on one hand, and there can also be this I'm not good enough on the other. You can take criticism very personally here, even though it's not a personal circuit. It's not a personal channel. So there can be a lot of self-flagellation. Really try and separate that out, though. Just because whatever you're trying to perfect might not be good enough, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. All right. Next up, April 2nd at 6:38 p.m. until April 3rd at 4:09 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, UTC, starting April 3rd at 12:38 a.m., going until April 3rd at 10:09 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 45, the trait of the gatherer. That's connecting now with our sun's position, gate 21, the trait of the hunter, huntress, the trait of control. This creates the money line, a design of a materialist. It's tribal, so that theme of mutual support there. This is the tribal leadership channel. It is the only access to the voice, to the throat center that the tribe has. The potential opportunities that it brings is to focus on managing your resources and what you can control or not, what you have or not. It can bring a generosity to share what you do have. There's a real support for education that can come as a theme here as well. The cautions. This is the CEO and the president together. So the pressure could have you really take a do-it-yourself attitude. People that have this in their chart are often very much do-it-theirselfers, although they need to learn to delegate. But if you don't normally have it, it might not be correct for you. And if you don't have your heart or ego center defined in your chart, you could also end up making promises that you really can't fulfill. All right. That brings us to our long-term transits. And the long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're here for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're part of you, even when they're not, if it's something that's not in your own design. We'll continue, as we've already talked about, to have this emotionality here with the pressure to enter into a new experience and the pressure for change that channel of transitoriness is bringing. Again, it might not be correct for you if you're not following your strategy and authority. The timing just might not be right for you. Gate 35, that trait of progress and change in the throat center, is sitting in line 5, called altruism, until April 1st, with a learning theme that says the sacrifice of personal for communal progress. It's going to be in its detriment that says, though altruistic and cooperative in general, a personal regret that in interaction, a greater personal expansion had been lost. Progressive communication, but always the sense that personal progress has been sacrificed. On April 1st, it will move into line 6, called rectification, with the learning theme that says the energy to correct. Now, 6 lines want to go beyond. So it's not just for the experience itself, but what is that experience going to bring? What else is it going to bring to my life? So beyond the journey of the experience, which is typically what the abstract circuitry is about, what else is there? What do I really have? What do I really get out of this? So in the exaltation, it says progressive change that results from correction. navigating that change, right? We have to make corrections as we go. But what's going to be there in the end? What's beyond? What's transcendent in this change? In the detriment, which again, in the not self world, we tend to see the detriments playing out more. It says correction, which brings change through severity and even destruction, and will always meet resistance. So bumping up. I'm not just going to go into that. I'm not just doing that. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. Right? So always putting up this resistance. Jupiter is activating this trait. So there could be expansion of these particular qualities, the exaltation or the detriment, whichever is playing out here. Making before April 1st, those altruistic changes that support the greater humanity, but feeling you didn't get what you wanted personally out of the experience, or the expansion of wanting that transcendence, maybe getting that transcendence, getting that greater whatever it is out of the experience, or just completely resisting the change, resisting the experience itself. Gate 36, the trait of crisis in the emotional center, continues to be activated by the north node of the moon and Saturn. Plus, in the long-term transits, by April 1st, we're going to have Mercury and Venus in this gate as well. So, holy smokes. That just puts a really big exclamation point on this trait when you've got 4 different planets activating it. Well, the north node is about our perspective and direction, what we see when we look out into the world. Yep, seeing crisis and change. It's in line 6, which could have you seen that when change is truly needed, when it's out of pure feelings and not the ego desire, for example, it can be transcended. Or, on the other end, you could just look out and see the sorrow, the cynicism that's out there. The change, well, it just leads to more crisis. You just have to go through another change after change after change. Saturn brings a different quality to gate 36. It brings limitation, constraints, discipline, consequences. It's in line 3 called transition now, and it is in its detriment. So here, if you don't allow the old to drop away with the change process, if you're trying to hold on to the old, Saturn's going to bring consequences. You're going to meet with resistance in the transition of going from novice to experience. Now, Saturn's not always the bad guy. It can also help you to be very disciplined in moving through change. The south node of the moon has to do with what's in our environment. It's in gate 6, the trait of conflict and friction, also in line 6, here called the peacemaker. It has a learning theme that comes and develops over time and maturity, which says the discipline and integrity of a superior force to unilaterally cease conflict, permit surrender and survival of its foe. The exaltation here says the highest form of reason is that life is sacred. So having that recognition that life is sacred and that's reason enough for peace. We are more likely seeing, though, the detriment. Again, that's what tends to play out in the not-self world, which says the peacemaker whose actions are just, but whose terms are unacceptable. The emotional power to end conflict, but only after one's conditions have been satisfied. Certainly what we're seeing in the various peace negotiations going on. Conditions that can be hard for the other side to swallow. The collective 36 and that tribal 6, both very social in that emotional center. So going through an experience, it can inevitably bring friction and conflict to relationships that can support growth as you work through it. Or there could be a breaking apart, a devolution of that relationship. Uranus position, it's moved out of gate 23 in the throat center down to gate 8, also in the throat center. That happened on March 26th. Still an individual trait, but now it's the trait of contribution. It points towards the G center about our identity, love, direction in life. So it's an expression of your individual identity and direction. The keynote for this gate says the basic worth realized by contributing individual efforts to group goals. As always, it's important to wait to be invited to share your unique contribution. The mutative spark that individuality can bring can only have the opportunity to catch fire if it's actually shared honestly. But there can also be a fear here of loss of individuality. As soon as you share it and it gets taken up by others, well, it's not just yours anymore. So always a balance there. You have to accept that as an individual trait. Neptune sitting in that gate 25, the individual trait of innocence, spirit of the self, and universal love, or not. The polarities can be there. It's in line 2, which is called the existentialist. So it's about being here, now, accepting what is, no matter what shocks come in. Neptune has that watery nature that veils and unveils. It could make it more difficult to connect to the qualities of this trait on one hand, but it could also unveil how not accepting yourself and being here in the now prevents you from really meeting the unknown in a way that allows you to adapt. Pluto sitting in that gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the root center, part of the abstract experiential circuitry. This is the trait of daydreaming and fantasizing about the next experience that you want to have. It's also sitting in line 2 called caution, with a developmental theme that says humanism tempered by pragmatism, being practical. So you can fantasize here about wanting to help others. This is collective after all, but not actually taking any action on it. Or there could be this wanting others to recognize your feelings and dreams for humanity in the expectation that you're going to get something out of it, likely recognition. Looking at the traits that are defined by the long-term transit field for everyone, your unique contribution could bring change that leads to conflict and friction, or change could bring conflict and friction that has you withdraw from sharing your contribution, or change could spark a unique contribution through you that increases or decreases conflict and friction. So those are just a few ways that you could put these keynotes together. Remember that for any of these traits that you don't have in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can learn from it, you can observe it playing out around you, but whether there's something for you to actually do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run you or puppet you. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. And if you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about? What are the geometric shapes? A bit of background on the system. You're welcome to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. And you'll find various opportunities there for readings if you want to go deeper into it. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could give it a like and consider subscribing. Okay, surfboards. Keep those surfboards out to ride these emotional waves. Watch that you're not jumping into a new experience to make change in your life out of this pressure rather than your strategy and authority. If it's correct for you, you can put energy into managing your resources and increasing your depth in an area that resonates for you. But watch for over-controlling and micromanaging, as well as investing in something that you think will bring you more depth that's really not of value for you, not aligned for you. Have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, live, and love the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.